Emily, as the Trump is going to come to power on January 20th, there are a lot of rumors going on about the H-1B, the restrictions on the H-1B. So we're going to focus our discussion only on H-1B in this particular presentation, Emily. Now, we have not seen much speeches by Trump on H-1B. Of course, we can gauge more by what the Trump advisors, especially Stephen Miller and Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and these people, based on that, we can get to a judgment where we are going to be in the coming future. Now, do you expect more further restrictions on H-1B based on the team that he selected going forward from January 20th, 2025?
I definitely do. Although we have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, they're tasked with more government efficiency issues, not so much immigration, which means immigration is going to be guided mostly by Stephen Miller. And he's made it very clear that he's not only anti-illegal immigration, he's anti-legal immigration. He wants all immigration to be reduced. And he's been quite vocal on Twitter or X about not liking the H-1B program. So I would expect his plans will become Trump's plans to try to restrict H-1Bs and reduce the number of people who are on H-1Bs in the U.S.
Stephen Miller was there last time also, in Trump 1.0, he was there too. What did he try to do at that time? He couldn't achieve it, where you think so that he may try to do it again?
Well, I think the prevailing wage change, there was a regulation for that. It was implemented, but it was blocked by a court. I expect them to try to do that again and probably might actually get their way with it this time around. There were quite a few things that they were able to accomplish. We saw the level 1 wage requests for evidence, asking if the position was a specialty occupation. He eliminated deference to the prior approvals. That caused a lot of people who were here in the US for years and always renewing, never having any problems, all of a sudden facing RFEs and even denials for simple extension applications. And then we saw the biometrics for the I-539, which is not directly related to H-1B, but it definitely impacted the H-1B spouses with their EAD renewals. We also saw a push to put computer systems analyst, which is a common SOC code for H-1Bs, to say that it's no longer a specialty occupation, and saw a lot more specialty occupation RFEs in general. Shortened H-1B approvals, that might be coming again, more targeting of consulting companies or staffing agencies, asking for more documentation than before. So I do think all of that is going to come back and likely be more successful this time around because they know what they're doing.
Not to forget that he stopped premium processing also for the H-1Bs at that time when the Trump administration was. What is the safer method for people, Emily? Let's say I have an H-1B job right now. I mean, I want to survive. I want to stay in the United States. I want to work in the United States. What is the best strategy? Let's say I'm working for a consulting company versus working for an end client company, working for a smaller company, working for a bigger company. Which one would be safer for me and my family?
I would say not a consulting company. It's better to work for full-time for an end client company, a larger company, although they also faced difficulties. I think they saw denials like they'd never seen before. But I think there's definitely going to be a attempt to make it harder for consulting companies to get approval. So if you can move to a different company, that might be helpful. If your H-1B is expiring in the near future, let's say sometime in 2025, even if it might be too early to file the extension now, you might consider filing it now as an amendment plus extension so that you can get yours locked in for the next 3 years and not have to worry about it until 2027 or 2028 is another option. And I would definitely say plan ahead and file as early as possible. You can file up to 6 months before the requested start date. File it as early as possible because we're expecting everything to take longer. And also, if you do experience an RFE and then a denial, hopefully you would get that decision before your current H-1B expires. That gives you more options to be able to refile or file an appeal or file litigation or change status to some other visa category so that you don't have to immediately leave the US. What do you think about potential for layoffs, and what steps can people take there? Do you think that being able to file that change of status to B2 is still going to be an option?
Yes, I'm sorry. I meant to say the B2, which Biden administration has introduced, where within the 60-day gap period, people could move to B2, and from B2, while it's pending or approved, people could get the change of status approved to H-1B. That provision is there right now, but most probably the Trump administration will take the provision off, where if the case is pending, B2 is pending, and they may not approve the H-1B with the I-94. So that's definitely, when you get laid off, you may have a problem as compared to right now, where people could move to B2, and from B2, they could move to H1B. Now, if they have an option, definitely H4 is an option that they need to look into. If not, probably F1 is another option they may want to look into. They may also want to look into B2 only for staying, but we don't know at this point of time whether we could be able to move from B2 to H1B at a later date. But right now, it's working. Definitely try every method that you possibly can not to get laid off. You need to work very hard. I mean, things are not doing good for immigration. If your American colleague is working for 8 hours, maybe you need to work 16 hours. You may have to work much harder than the regular people to keep up your job, because the employers are also under tremendous pressure to take the H-1B people off the workforce from their employee list, because there will be, politically also it looks very weak if they would have an H-1B. So your duty is to work more harder, to work on new technologies, sharpen your skill set, and make sure that you are up to date in the technology, and also to be socially well with the colleagues is important too for you to keep the job. Yes, if you do get laid off, you can consider F1, H4, and under certain circumstances, B2 is an option that you can look into.
How do you think travel is going to be impacted with the new Trump administration?
Travel is going to be very bad, Emily. Especially, we are already noticing a lot of visa appointments are not available for a long periods of time. It may not get better as the new administration is going to come in. They're going to increase the pressure on the consulates to do more paperwork, more checking around the things for getting the visas. So that may increase the burden on the consulate, may increase the timeline for getting the stamping done. Also, when they do go for stamping, the consulate may adhere to very stricter provisions of interpretations of the law, and they may issue more 221Gs, they may issue more denials, they may delay it for a long period of time. What happens with these delays, Emily, is that when you go and you get delayed outside the country, the company that is keeping you on the payroll might terminate you from the employment, and then you will be forced to withdraw your work visa at that point of time when you go for stamping. So yes, travel will be a problem a lot. As we know that the State Department did implemented the stamping within United States, but they haven't commented very much anything about it. It's been almost like 7-8 months that nothing has been coming out, or even 1 year that nothing is coming out on that. We don't know if the new government is going to pursue or not. But yes, stampings are going to be a problem. Travel is going to be a problem. It's better to avoid as much as possible traveling. It's better as much as possible if you can stop going for stamping there. Dropbox is one of the things that we have seen expanded a lot under the Biden administration, where they even went on to the Dropbox that even if your visa expires up to 4 years, you can go for Dropbox. The new administration may come up with some limitations on Dropbox, where more personal interviews may have to go through, which is not good for the H-1B community, Emily.
Yeah, we definitely saw extreme vetting with the Trump administration. They did implement everyone has to be interviewed for the adjustment of status. So it makes sense that what they would also say that everyone has to be interviewed in person for visa stamping as well. And we also have the potential of visa bans. I mean, we actually had an H-1B visa ban during the Trump administration before. Of course, was that directly related to COVID, or was it something that the Trump administration just wanted to do to reduce the number of immigrants in the country, and they blamed COVID as the reason for it? It's hard to say, but there's certainly a potential for any kind of travel ban that makes it impossible to get the visa unless you get some sort of special exemption from the consulate for that. And then I think that H-1B compliance is going to be a big issue for companies. They need to make sure that their public access files are up to date, that they're following the regulations of the Department of Labor for their LCAs. What do you think someone should do, the worker, if their company's compliance is in question from the Trump administration?
Maybe they need to leave that company and join some other company if they can get an opportunity to leave that company, Emily. Those people who are not complying with the LCA wages, those who are not paying the salaries for employees properly, on time, and regularly, may get into bigger trouble though. Now, even though this particular employee may be getting the salary properly, doing everything all right, but if the company is not complying otherwise with the other employees, it may affect this particular employee also. It may create a problem. So definitely staying away from those companies would be better as much as you can. And with all going on, if I have not applied for the green card, I'm in the H-1B, do you still recommend to apply for permanent I-140, or what should I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in the event that there is some sort of travel ban or, um, having that at least started green card process is one of the things that could be pointed to as a reason to allow you to stay in the country or allow you to come back into the country. So it gives you not necessarily additional rights, but a little bit additional safety to be able to continue to stay in the US on an H-1B. What about dependents? We had biometrics before for the H-4 holders, not the H-1B holders, and that caused a lot of issues for the H-4 EAD. What do you think that the H-4 EAD might be completely eliminated? Is that something Trump tried to do before?
Yeah, definitely. Trump tried to eliminate the H-4 EAD. He also, it didn't went through though, but he tried also to delay the H-4 EAD. But because of the court case where the court said that the H-1, H-4, and EAD, if it's filed together, should be approved together. However, that agreement that the USCIS and the law firm, the lawyers that represented the ALA, which Stephen Brown is one of the lawyers from our office who represented, where the agreement was only until January of 2025 that the H-4 and EAD, if it's filed along with the H-1B, will be approved together. But if it's been filed afterwards, though, they may not honor that H-1B and H-4 EAD to be approved. Also, we don't know whether the H-4 EAD is going to continue. We know that up to 300,000 people plus are on H-4 EAD right now. Definitely, what is the process? The process that requires for the new administration to remove would be they have to go through the regulatory process because it was being issued through regulations. So they may issue regulations to take up the H-4 EADs. We'll have to come to see on that. What do you feel about that, Emily?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that they're going to target. I think they're going to target any of these employment authorizations that were not expressly set out by Congress. So, possibly even OPT, but definitely H-4 EAD is at risk. So if you have a spouse that's on H-4 EAD, you may want to consider having them switch to an H-1B, which would require them potentially to go through the lottery. So that lottery is going to be coming up in March. So now's the time to start having them discuss with their employers to try to get them on their own separate H-1B And that when you do have the both spouses on separate H-1B, that does give a little bit more flexibility in the event that there is a layoff, because the other spouse can always switch to H-4, versus if the husband and wife are on H-1B and H-4 and the H-1B gets laid off, both spouses can potentially lose their status and may have to change to B2 or F1 or find another option.
Emily, when we have seen this 8 years ago when Trump administration came in, we have seen a lot of denials. We have seen shortened extensions. Can you explain and elaborate? You know, you've been working in the immigration field from 2003, and all of a sudden in 2017, you started seeing completely different. Can you explain what it is? Because a lot of people have forgotten Trump 1.0.
Yeah, and especially because there was never any change in the law. So nothing changed by Congress. They didn't pass any regulations that changed anything. It was all about how do we reinterpret existing law to make it harder. And so they reinterpreted specialty occupation to basically say that if there were multiple fields of study that could qualify someone to do this job with a bachelor's degree, that's not a specialty occupation. It has to be only one field of study to qualify someone. Which is not really in line with how the real world operates. We also saw them questioning any petition that used a level 1 prevailing wage, saying that, well, this is really an entry-level position, but your job description of your job duties make it sound like this is a much higher level position. Therefore, we think your LCA is not in accordance with the position that you're sponsoring for. So we're going to deny based on that. And then particularly for companies involved in third-party placement, these are consulting companies or staffing companies where your placement at the end client is based on a contract, they were asking for those contracts. They were asking for letters from the end client, letters from the vendor. And if any of those documents were expiring within the 3-year validity period that you're requesting, they were not going to give you a full 3-year approval. They're only going to approve to the end of that contract, even though the contract practically automatically renews or goes into a month-to-month extension situation. So those are the ways that they were able to drastically increase the number of RFEs and the number of denials, even though nothing changed in the law.
And for those people who have forgotten those things, or those people who are new to those things, you may want to prepare yourself. Maybe you need to do, sit down with your spouse, sit down with your cousins, plan it out, action plan A, plan B. What happens if you get the denial? What's the next course of action? You could possibly go outside the country, because when the H1 gets denied and your extension gets denied and your I-94 already expired, you could not at that point of time move to F1 or B2. Then you will be forced to go outside the country and stay outside the country for a while before you come back into the United States. That's what a lot of people did at that point of time. Any other things, Emily? Questions?
Nope, I think we covered as much as we can without knowing exactly what the Trump administration has up its sleeve, but we definitely know it's not a good sign for H-1Bs coming up for the next 4 years.
Keep tuned to our Tuesday live sessions. Every Tuesday we bring in, and whatever updates that pop up after January 20th, will bring in. We want you to follow our YouTube channel. We've been there for a long period of time. We cover all the things. We take the practical questions from the individuals, and especially our YouTube live on Tuesday. You can interact with us. You can ask the questions. Don't forget that we do have a daily Zoom call, free for half an hour for anybody who wants to join and ask questions. It's available every day. It's there on our website. You can get in. The link is provided at the bottom. Thank you for tuning in.